Deep beneath the Mexican jungles lies a stone slab with the image of a man carved into it. He is leaning forward, as if sitting in a cramped cabin. His hands are gripping levers, and his feet are resting on pedals. Behind his back, something resembling an engine with tongues of flame bursting backward is carved. This slab was sculpted more than 1,300 years ago and lay sealed until the middle of the 20th century. And only decades later, a debate erupted over this image that has not quieted down to this day. This is an ancient pilot sitting in a machine that, according to textbooks, the Maya civilization should not have known about. The object itself exists and stands in the National Museum of Anthropology in the capital of Mexico. And this is just the first of 7 objects that either rewrite human history or prove that we understand our past much worse than we were taught in school. One of these 7 stands under the open sky, and anyone can come and place their hand on it. It will turn out to be the most inexplicable of all, but first things first. To understand why Pakal's sarcophagus became the most discussed stone carving in the world, we need to return to the day of its discovery. Mexican archaeologist Alberto Ruz-Luillier spent 4 years clearing a staircase inside the Temple of the Inscriptions in the ancient city of Palenque. When the last stone was moved aside, he found himself in a hall that hadn't seen daylight for 1,500 years. In the center stood a sarcophagus covered by a heavy slab weighing over 5 tons, featuring a carved human figure. It was this figure that captured the imagination of researchers across the planet and split them into 2 irreconcilable camps. Proponents of one version see complex religious symbols with cosmogonic meaning in the image: the tree of life passing through the ruler's body, an ancestral bird above, and the underworld below. They read the scene as a map detailing the journey of the ruler's soul after his death. Proponents of the other version see something entirely different on the exact same slab, and they cannot shake this image. They speak of a capsule in which a pilot sits, describing nozzles at the bottom and an antenna above his head. They point to a hose near the seated man's nose and a straps wrapping around his torso. They ask why this man is reaching out with his hands toward something that looks like an instrument panel, and why his posture replicates the posture of a modern fighter jet pilot down to the exact angle. Mainstream academics respond that this is a coincidental overlap of shapes and nothing more, that any complex symbolism can be fitted to any modern engineering form if one wishes. And they are right about one thing. The human brain truly seeks familiar patterns where they might not exist. But there is one detail that prevents this issue from being closed once and for all. The Maya were astronomers of the highest order, calculating the motion of Venus with astonishing precision. They knew about the existence of celestial bodies that are impossible to see from Earth with the naked eye. And when such a people leave us an image of a man reaching for levers inside a complex form, brushing it off is just too easy. What was too early? We will understand later. But for now, remember this phrase. And if this descent into the tomb won't let you go, subscribe. The next 6 objects will be even stranger. Let us cross the ocean to Austria in the year 1885 to a factory in the town of Skondorf. A worker named Riedel breaks open a piece of hard brown coal from the Wolfsegg mine with a hammer. Geologists say this coal seam is between 20 and 60 million years old. From the shattered piece, a parallelepiped-shaped metallic object with deep grooves along its sides falls onto the table. The edges are nearly flat, and a deformation is noticeable in the center. The find weighs about 800 grams. As the foreman weighs the object in his palm, he doesn't immediately understand what exactly he is holding. This is steel from inside a coal seam that formed long before humans appeared on Earth. The object was handed over to the museum in the city of Linz. It was photographed, described, and measured from all sides. It hung in a museum display case for decades until the original vanished during one of the wars. Only detailed replicas, clear photographs, and scientific documents from the researchers of that time remain. Modern science offers a down-to-earth explanation for this find and dislikes discussing it. It is a ballast from a steam engine that accidentally fell into the coal seam during mining operations in the shaft. Perhaps that was the case, but another group of researchers asks uncomfortable questions. How exactly did a locomotive weight end up not on top of the seam, but inside a lump of coal cracked by a hammer right down the middle? How did the surface of the coal around the metallic object remain perfectly sealed without a single crack? And why does the shape of this object look unlike any known ballast or part from the steam era? Too early, this formula sound for the second time, and it will return again. The year is 1974, on the banks of the Mureș River in western Romania, near the town of Aiud. Workers are digging sand for construction and, at a depth of about 10 meters, find 3 objects at once. The first 2 are the bones of an ancient animal, a large tibia, and teeth of an extinct mastodon. This relative of the elephant vanished from the face of the earth tens of thousands of years ago, and its bones are easy to identify. The third object lies next to the bones and is made of metal, which shouldn't be there at all. It resembles a rough wedge or hammer about 20 centimeters long and weighing just over 2 kilograms. In the upper part of the object, 2 deep holes are visible, as if meant for mounting it to something larger. The object was handed over to the Institute of Non-Ferrous Metals in the town of Magurel for detailed analysis. And that is when the strangest part of this Romanian story begins. The analysis showed that the object consists almost entirely of aluminum with traces of other metals. More precisely, it is an alloy in which aluminum accounts for more than 90% of the total composition. Industrial production of aluminum in the world only began in the second half of the 19th century. Before that moment, the metal existed only as a rare laboratory novelty, more expensive than gold. Obtaining aluminum in significant quantities without electrolysis is virtually impossible even today. Yet the bones next to it belong to a beast that died long before the invention of electricity and batteries. Skeptics propose a version stating that the object belongs to the 20th century and fell into the excavation by accident, that it is a part of old aircraft left behind later, which then sank down through the soil. However, the metal surface was covered with a thick layer of oxide over 1 millimeter deep. Such a layer forms on aluminum slowly, over centuries, and cannot be acquired in a matter of decades. Today, the object is kept in the National Museum of Transylvanian History in the city of Cluj-Napoca, behind a glass display case. Anyone can travel there and see it with their own eyes in the museum exhibition. One artifact can be written off as a mistake, two as a coincidence, but we are only at the beginning of the journey. Would you trust the version of an accidentally dropped part if you held this wedge in your own hands? Let's go underground once more, this time to Egypt, to the temple of the goddess Hathor in ancient Dendera. This place is less famous than the pyramids, but it is here that the walls show something found nowhere else. They show images that look like an actual technical blueprint from an engineering manual. In a subterranean crypt, figures of priests are carved on the wall, carefully holding a huge, elongated vessel. Inside this vessel, a snake winds like a wave with its head raised and its gaze directed upward. The snake's tail rests against a base resembling a bloomed lotus flower with a long stem. Leading to the lotus is something reminiscent of a bundle or a thick cable running down to the base of the scene. Underneath the object stands a support depicted as a tall, slender column with human arms. When 19th century researchers saw this, they described the scene as a religious metaphor. They were right on one point. Any scene from ancient Egypt can be interpreted as religious, if one so desires. However, in the late 20th century, electrical engineers examined this same relief and saw something different. They saw a light bulb, and not just any bulb, but a specific technical device with well-defined components. They identified the elongated vessel as a glass bulb of the type in which an electrical discharge occurs. The serpent inside was interpreted as a filament, curved in a specific way to produce a uniform glow along the entire length of the bulb. The cable extending downward was interpreted as a power cord connected to an energy source. The support beneath the bulb was explained as an insulating base, essential for safety. In the dark, underground corridors of Egypt's temples, there are practically no traces of soot from fire on the ceilings. If priests had illuminated these rooms with torches and oil lamps for thousands of years in a row, soot would be everywhere. It should have covered the stone in a thick black layer, but it isn't there. And this puzzles researchers. Mainstream science responds to this reasonably, without denying the absence of fire traces. Ancient builders could have regularly cleaned the ceilings and walls of black residue using special mixtures. As for the scene itself, it depicts a creation myth where the snake and the lotus are part of classical Egyptian symbolism. Perhaps this is the correct explanation for what is carved on the wall of the underground crypt. Yet the relief remains. It is carved in stone, and millions of tourists see it annually. If it is simply a creation myth, why does it look exactly like a modern vacuum tube lamp? If this topic hooks you, share in the comments which object impressed you the most. In Egypt, another object has sparked intense debate among aircraft designers worldwide. The year is 1898. The location, the tomb of Padiaman in the ancient necropolis of Saqqara. Among the funerary artifacts, archaeologists discovered a small wooden statuette measuring approximately 14 centimeters in length. Mistaking it for a conventional representation of a bird, they cataloged and packed it away in the Cairo Museum's archives. There, the statuette remained for over 70 years before anyone gave it serious attention. In the 1970s, a curator picked up the statuette and was literally stopped in his tracks. Something about its proportions seemed glaringly unsuited for a statuette of a bird in flight. The tail was positioned vertically, like an airplane's rudder, whereas bird depictions from that era featured horizontal tails. The wing profile, its aerodynamic cross-section, closely resembled that of a modern airplane wing. The head had an aerodynamic shape and lacked a mouth or beak, features that deviated from the way ancient Egyptian masters typically portrayed them. The figurine was shown to engineers, and they were confounded by what they saw before them. When a model was placed in a wind tunnel, it behaved completely unlike a normal bird. It behaved like a real glider. The lifting force was distributed exactly as needed for stable gliding. If launched from an elevation at the correct angle, it would fly a significant distance along a smooth trajectory. In the Cairo Museum, this object is kept to this day, labeled as a depiction of sacred falcon. In alternative publications, it is called the Saqqara bird and is presented as a minor mystery of history. The debate over its nature has not quieted down and still stirs both historians and engineers. Perhaps it is a ritual depiction made by an unusually talented master with a heightened sense of form. Or perhaps it is a scale model of something that the ancient artist happened to see once and remember. And we move to the sixth object, an item that is visible even from space. The Nicoya Peninsula in the southwest of the small country of Costa Rica, the 1930s. Workers of a company engaged in clearing jungles for banana plantations are hacking through the dense vegetation. Suddenly, they stop because right there in the thicket before them lie enormous stone spheres. Perfectly round, varying in size from a tennis ball to an entire passenger car in diameter. The largest weighs 16 tons, the weight of a small truck compressed into a perfect sphere. These spheres number in the hundreds, and they are scattered across the peninsula over tens of kilometers. Some stood in groups, forming geometric patterns visible only from the air or from space. Others lay along straight lines, aligned with the sunrise points on the days of the vernal equinox. They are made of granodiorite, an igneous rock harder than most building stones. The precision of their shape amazes specialists even today when checked with modern laser instruments. The deviation from a perfect sphere in the large globes does not exceed 2% of their average diameter. Archaeologists explain that these spheres were created by the Dequas culture, which existed on the peninsula before the arrival of the Spaniards. That craftsmen shaped the boulders with stone hammers and then ground away irregularities with sand and water. That they could have been symbols of power for local chiefs or ritual markers of tribal territory boundaries. The version is logical, and it truly explains the presence of these spheres on the peninsula best. However, one key circumstance remains unexplained, which does not fit into the general picture. The stone from which the spheres are made is not found naturally on the Nicoya Peninsula at all. The nearest outcrop of granodiorite is located 60 kilometers away from where the spherical objects were found. Between the origin of the stone and the location of the finds lie mountains, rivers, and dense tropical jungles. Without wheels, draft animal power, or advanced metallurgy, moving a 16-ton sphere through the jungle is virtually impossible. Skeptics say the Dequas culture moved these spheres for years, one by one, generation after generation. Perhaps that was how it happened, but no one in the entire history of observations has ever witnessed the actual process. Too early. This formula does not let go again and leads us to the seventh object on our list, to the very one that stands today under the open sky in one of the largest capitals of the world. The city of Delhi, capital of India, Morali district. Among the ruins of an ancient architectural complex rises a metallic pillar. Its height is 7 meters, it weighs over 6 tons, and its age exceeds 16 centuries. This pillar consists of iron, pure forged iron of the highest quality and uniformity. And here lies the main riddle for which we have traveled this whole way. It does not rust, standing on the street under the Indian monsoons in conditions of high humidity and temperature fluctuations. 1,500 years in the open air, and not a single spot of rust on its surface to this day. Modern iron products in such climatic conditions begin to oxidize during the very first rainy season. Within decades, they turn into dust that crumbles at the first touch of a finger. Yet the Delhi pillar shines in the sun as if it were forged in a smithy just last year. Scientists have repeatedly taken metal samples for detailed analysis in modern laboratories. The analysis showed a high phosphorus content and an almost complete absence of sulfur in the composition of the alloy. Modern industrial steel is made exactly the opposite way in its general chemical composition. Sulfur is specially added to it for ease of machining, and subsequently, this steel rusts in a matter of years. Ancient Indian masters somehow knew the correct reverse formula of iron against corrosion. Modern metallurgists call this protective layer a passivating coating and have fought to create it for decades. The ancient masters obtained it 1,500 years ago without any modern technology. And so we return to the main promise made at the very beginning of this conversation. One of the 7 objects on our list stands today right under the open sky of a major city. Anyone at any moment can come to Delhi, walk up to the pillar, and place their palm on the metal, feel its warmth on a sunny day and its pleasant coolness during the Indian evening hours. It simply stands, and its existence is the quietest and at the same time the loudest proof that we are not the first. That we know much less about our own past than it seems to us and than we are taught from the school bench. 7 objects, each of which exists physically and can be seen and photographed. They can be found in the museums of Mexico City, Linz, Cluj-Napoca, Cairo, San Jose, and under the open sky of Delhi. They are not fiction and not a myth. They are substantial, they are heavy, they cast a shadow. And each of them, at its historical moment, appeared too early for its era. Perhaps there is a simple explanation for this that science will find decades from now. Or perhaps among our common ancestors, there were also teachers whose names history did not preserve. Camp 1 believes these objects are coincidental overlaps, dating errors, or skillful hoaxes. Camp 2 is certain that we are using the legacy of a more advanced civilization that we have forgotten. Camp 3 adds a third, bolder version that you can all picture for yourselves. Write in the comments which camp you're closer to and why. I'll be interested to read it. Place your palm on any ancient stone wall during your next journey. Beneath that wall lies what you have not yet seen, and perhaps will never see in your life. And perhaps the names of those who left all this behind will truly never be known to history. But the trace of their hands remain beneath our feet in the form of stone spheres, metallic columns, and sarcophagi. And this trace is too smooth, too precise, too repetitive to be an accident.